Great.
The Irish have arisen.
All right, we're in. So welcome, everybody. So now that we're recording, I'll just reiterate what we're going to do here. We're going to focus, first of all, on best practices for Zoom meetings. Some of you are doing some very creative things. I'm glad Shelley's here. I've been to one of her meetings and I've seen what they do with Zoom. They brighten it up a bit. Hopefully she'll tell us a bit about that. After that, we'll move right into some best practices around service while in COVID. Because I don't know about you, but my sense is we keep our Rotarians engaged if we have opportunities to be in contact with each other and do stuff. We're service above self. So we're going to focus on Zoom calls first, some service ideas, and past District Governor Rod is here, and welcome him as a guest. He's our district trainer. He will have a few thoughts for you towards the end about some upcoming things. Past District Governor Sean, most of you know, is here. He's going to be our host, and he is on the district membership committee, and you'll hear a little bit from him towards the end too. So what we're going to do so that we get everybody in, you all know at the bottom of your screen there is a little reaction window. It's at the right on the bottom there. And if you would like to share best practice or have even a question, I want you to click that. And you'll notice you have a little hand there. You can raise your hand. And if you would do that, then you'll go on the screen and I'll make sure I catch you. If you wave at me, I may miss you. So I want you to use that raise a hand function, and then we will go through and see who we got. Just remember to take it down when you're done, if that's not too complicated. And what it looks like is very much what I'm going to do now. There you can see my little hand up there. And then it's very easy to take it down again. So we're going to teach you how to use that reaction button. Or if you like, you can do something like that, put a little heart up there. And the heart will be just as good as a raised hand. In fact, I might even go to the hearts before I go to the raised hand. I can't guarantee that, but I might just do that. Okay, let's start off with Mary from Whidbey West Side. We're looking for best practices with Zoom. You had your hand up briefly, maybe just to demonstrate, eh?
Just to demonstrate.
Good for you. All right, so let's have some best practices. Shelley, maybe we could start with you because you've been doing some good things there in Chilliwack.
You're muted, Shelley.
If you want it visually, I have a screen up if you share screen with it. So do you want me to do it visually?
Why not? You're demonstrating.
Share my screen and I'll just click really fast because I was working on it before I knew you wanted me to do it.
I just clicked so that we can all share our screen, so you should be able to do that.
Okay, so let's just go there. So I'm not going to bore you with it all, but I start off calling the meeting forward, and then we have tried to keep as much of the pattern of our meetings. So we have O Canada. We recognize that we live in this fallow world where we live, work, and play in beautiful lands. The theme of the month comes all the time, hopefully with a video. That's that blank screen. What I am trying to do is make things visual. I was very worried when I began that people were going to look at my head all the time, and that makes me anxious. So I did this. We welcome Rotarians. We have a report. These are some new Rotarians. Anything I can do to make it visual and where people aren't looking at me is a good thing. So I do spend some time on it. I have this thing about all the things that are active in the club with the thesis and the hope to say we're not dead in the water. So that was the focus of that, and it changes as we go. Then we have our committee reports, if we have some, just things that we're doing, scrolling through. Even if I go back in history to the club's activity and bring it forward to saying we're thinking about it, so that people see that there's continuity in life. For example, all these pictures are Rotarians at work from other years, but we're planning on it going forward. So this is the thing that Carol sends us. And I do not read my PowerPoints out loud. That's death by PowerPoint. People can read. I might highlight a few things. Secretary's report, we have a speaker, we have the next week's, and a thought, and goodbye. That's it. How's that?
Nice.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much.
So the whole thing was visual. I don't want people looking at me, trying to hold to the pattern.
Okay. And you break the show up during you're there and then you pull off so people can do their reports, whatever. So you're in and out of your slideshow, right?
Well, like in the committee reports, it is uh, depending on the person and their comfort zone. So my youth services person, I stopped sharing. She went in with her slideshows of what Interact we're doing and came out. But lots of people aren't comfortable with that. So I might make a slide for them, but
Okay.
they'll speak to it. It'll stay
Yeah.
in my slideshow. So
Thank you. Very
thanks.
helpful. Thank you for
Okay.
that. Teacher, how can you tell this woman's a retired teacher, principal? Excellent. What we're doing, those of you that have arrived, we're adding to our name the club we're in. Some of you figured that out, which is good. And if you go down to the little reaction button where you raise your hand, we will identify you. We're talking about best practices with Zoom. And Sharon, go ahead.
I'll take my hand off. The meetings are varied every single week. One will focus on a speaker. One will focus on a project. One will be a classification, and that has been really fun this year because we have had classifications 1 month from the oldest members in terms of years, and then the following month, the newest members who have come into the club. So it's really been fun to have that contrast of the old members, the new members, and then eventually we'll catch up with the middle. It happens we have a member in our club who is the CEO of our local hospital. So COVID right now is always a subject, and we almost every week get an update from him. We can do that as part of the regular meeting, and sometimes it just happens during the social hour. Our meetings from 5 to 5:30 are all social. Our actual meeting is from 5:30 to 6:30. So the first half hour is just chat with your friends, check in, laugh, be silly, whatever. And I think it has helped us stay connected a lot because we can just not, we just be our friends, even though we're not in the same room. And with the variety has been really interesting, so that I don't think many people have dropped off. We may lose a couple, but they have been inactive for a long time, and we're hopeful we can reactivate. We're working on it, but
Right.
so far we're 40, we will be 41 next week. So we're continuing to bring in new members.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And thank you both, you and Shelley, for saying a lot in a brief period of time. So we have a chance to touch base with other people. I'm a little worried because Rod's got his hand up. He's a past governor. But we're going to get to him in a sec because sometimes there he's gone again. So Eckert, why don't you go ahead and then we'll get Rod up next.
Okay. So similar to what Shelley was saying, we try and keep as much into the routine as we have before. We did change to meeting 2 times a month instead of every week. So that was a big change in January. We were going to do that regardless of COVID. That was just a decision that the board had made going forward, just because of some comments that were made about attendance and ability to attend all these meetings weekly. So since then, we've been averaging on our Zoom meetings about 70% attendance, which is pretty good. We start with the national anthem. It has a video, Rotary moment, which sometimes includes a video or a slide presentation. And then, of course, guest speakers with shared PowerPoint screens and so forth. But I do want to mention 3 special Zoom meetings that we had that were quite eventful and quite successful. The first was in the June installation, and the June installation happened to coincide with our 35th year anniversary as a club. And so we invited a whole slew of special guests and honorary Rotarians, as well as former members, retired members. And so we had quite a few people in that Zoom meeting. And there was a video presentation that 2 of our members put together of the highlights from our 35 years, from all the service events and fundraisers and so forth, which was very, very well received. And really, for our younger members, gave them a really good perspective of what we had achieved as a club over the years. So that was really good. The next one was the Remembrance Day ceremony on November the 11th, which would be Veterans Day in the States. This was a 2-hour Zoom presentation, if you can believe that. Tough to keep people on Zoom for 2 hours. Very robust, very well organized, and very well attended. We had several multimedia presentations, including poems accompanied by video. Each members were invited to share individual stories about family members who'd been involved in conflict and had served and had made sacrifices. Our main guest speaker was a veteran from the Canadian Armed Forces and she rose up to fairly senior ranks. And she talked about what her experiences had been as a member of the armed forces. We had several special guests, including District Governor Carol Tickleman and ADG Alan Asaf. And it was quite an emotional event, as you can imagine, especially when people told personal stories of what family had gone through and how important this day was for them. So we received high praise. We had very good response from everybody on that one. And then on Christmas, we talked about possibly having a Zoom kind of Christmas carol singing, but and a gift exchange via Zoom, which we normally do, but that kind of all fell through the cracks. What we did instead was just have a 1-hour Zoom meeting where we went around and every member had an opportunity to share a heartfelt personal story about their best memory, their best Christmas memory. And we interspersed that with Christmas carols by renowned artists that were shared on screen with video. And that was only an hour long, but those kind of stood out and were very well received. So I know what's coming up, in the near future up here. There's Canada Day, so national kind of things or whatever. But Labor Day is coming up in September. But we've been looking to those kind of events to kind of capture a theme and make it something special for members. So they've been well received.
Okay. Thank you very much. Rod.
Thanks very much, Dennis. Just a couple of very practical suggestions for when you're doing your Zoom meetings. Shelley, I think your club does an outstanding job with your visuals, and we too use visuals, but they're not nearly as nicely done as the ones you have. So kudos to you on that. But a couple of practical application things. When you log into your Zoom meeting, I always make sure that we have a co-host in our meetings, so that if something happens, and one day I had a power failure and my modem went down and that was it, I was gone, but the meeting could continue because there was a co-host who could then pick up and move forward with that. The second thing is, if we look at the screen tonight, there are some examples of well-lit, good background situations, and there are some examples that are perhaps a little more difficult. It's hard to see faces when you're backlit. It's hard when you've got a flare coming because there's a bright light directly above your head that's shining down onto your space. So, I'm looking, Roger has gone dark here again, but Roger was on just a moment ago, and I'm sure Roger has a Zoom background that he's using. Dennis obviously is using a Zoom background. So think about how your face is lit. Think about how large you are in your screen. There should be a little bit of headspace, a little bit on top, a little bit of area there. But again, placing the camera of your equipment, whatever it is, slightly above your eye level, just very slightly above, and then have it aimed down just ever so slightly. You can adjust your chair. You can put your computer on a book or something to lift it up a little bit if you need to. But thinking about those kind of things, and then try and get your lighting even. And you can do it with a desk lamp or something like that, where there's lighting coming from both sides. And perhaps from on top. Try not to sit with your back to a window where the sun is shining in. Make sure your face is lit and it isn't coming from behind so that you're a silhouette in the background. When you're running your meetings and you have a guest speaker who has PowerPoint or video, ask them to send it to whoever is hosting and doing the operations of your meetings ahead of time. We've had 2 circumstances in our club where people did not share for whatever reason. And in both those circumstances, well, 2 in particular, where they didn't share and they couldn't get it to operate at their end. Had they shared that, we could have run it from the host's perspective and they would have been able to do their presentation properly. So there's some practical tips. And like Shelley, we move back and forth between the presentation and then the speaker. And that's something else. Make sure that you're set if you're recording or if you're running your meeting so that everybody can see. When you get into your speakers, go to a speaker's view, and you can either spotlight or pin that speaker so that everybody's seeing the speaker large on the screen. And I think that's something that will help enhance, particularly if you're recording, help enhance what's happening with your meetings. So there's some practical tips on some things to do.
Thanks, Rod. Those of you that have arrived, we're looking for best practices to do with Zoom, particularly making use of that technology. And you're certainly welcome to share your idea. We're just getting people to put their hands up so that I can identify them. Paul, I think you had your hand up and then you took it down. Do you want?
Dennis, sorry, I'll jump in with one more thing, that using the polls feature and the breakout rooms feature is also something that I would recommend you think about in your clubs. When we get together in meetings, often we sit at tables of 6 or 8, we're in smaller groups. Think about doing that before your meeting or as your meeting ends, going into breakout rooms so people can do that. And don't be afraid to use a poll. If you're going through your meeting and you have questions that will be coming up, have them ready and go to a poll.
All right. It makes the meeting more interesting for sure. All right. So Paul, did you have something, Langley Central, you wanted to share?
Yeah, I did have a couple of things that Rod just hit on. One of them, the rooms, breaking out into the rooms. Annette's done that a couple of times. We picked a topic. One was just talk about yourselves, what you've done, who you are. And a lot of us know each other for a lot of years, but we don't know something about each other. So those worked really, really well. Everyone in the club enjoyed that.
Okay.
We usually have 15 to 25 people at our meeting, a membership of just about 50. So there's a lot, not people that aren't joining, but the ones that do join have fun. We started singing the meeting we usually run the way we did it when we met at Newlands for lunch. We started trying to sing "O Canada" all together on Zoom, but that was a disaster. So we did a recording of it, and then actually Annette made us learn sign language. So we did "O Canada" the sign language and did it that way. A couple of meetings we did just a 4-way test instead of "O Canada," so changed it up that way a few times. We've had quite a few guest speakers in the last little while, so that's been good to have that, and people enjoy that. We did have a charter night just last week. We ended up with a couple of guys, 3 or 4 people talking about their career in Rotary, and we did a couple of Paul Harris's, and then we went to the remainder of the night, music bingo, a fun night, and we had a silent auction and raised close to $4,000.
So good, excellent. Thank you for that. We'll hear a couple more. Tricia, why don't you go ahead?
A lot of what we do is pretty consistent with everybody else, but we do always start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and similarly, we tried to say it together in the beginning. And instead, we just, like we would always assign things at our meeting, people sign up to do the Pledge of Allegiance. We always do the 4-way test at the beginning, and then we go into announcements. We continue to just have really good, strong speakers come in. We do a student of the month every month, and we've been able to continue bringing students in for that. One of the fun things for us was always doing raffle or the Sergeant at Arms. And so at the end of our meetings, we have had people sign up. They send in $50 because that was also a moneymaker thing. They send in $50 and then they just choose a number, and the president goes and looks at his screen and picks that number. And then he has personally, just as a personal connection, he will go get, wine, beer, chocolate, whatever, and he'll deliver it to their office or their home while they're masked and all of that. But just so he's still seeing people. We do have members who are just not interested in Zoom, but we have consistently checked in with people when we don't see them. We have between 40 and 50 members. And on average, we have between 20 and 30 each week still showing up. And not always the same. There's always the tried and true consistent people, but there's a rotation. So we're still checking in with the people. Most of the people we've kind of just been able to say, okay, you're clearly not going to come on Zoom until we're in person again. But some of us see each other professionally. So it's just, we continue to have those connections. And then Sergeant at Arms, there's one person who just loves flipping crap to other people. And so she keeps track and will find people at the end. And then we just have people send money into the treasurer. We haven't set up a Venmo or anything yet, but we're talking about that just so those dollars are continuing to come in. So.
Right. Thank you for that. Shelley, did you have a comment you wanted to add? I saw your hand up there. You have to turn your mic on.
Question for Rod, I put in chat. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for that. Linda for Douglas Island, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate how important the breakout rooms have become for us. We didn't do that for the first few months of Zoom, but we do at least 2 breakout rooms, and that's kept us connected socially, in addition to some just social time at the beginning. We also have really strong programs that are advertised, and that brings people in. We use the chat area a good bit during the meetings, so people will not only send in questions for the speaker, but also just connect individually, which is a good way to stay connected. And then for special events for us, like Charter Night or our holiday party, the Family of Rotary group actually comes up with some kind of party. We've had a couple of trivia nights that have been really fun and well planned out, and just keeps us connected.
Linda, do you go into breakout groups during your meeting for a period of time rather than just before?
Well, no, we visit a little bit as people are coming in.
Right.
Because we have a 7 a.m. meeting, and so people are visiting. We pretty well start on time. The program happens, and then depending on how much time we have at the end, that's when we do our chat rooms. I mean,
Gotcha.
our breakout rooms.
Okay,
So
excellent.
it can be 2, and then she'll it'll be one room, and then she'll reshuffle, and we'll see another. We found that 4 people works best.
In a
We've
group.
tried 6 or 8, but it's too many people, and you can't share. So
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So let's do a switch now and let's go. We've had some great ideas. It sounds like having an interesting program makes Zoom more doable. But there's things we can do with Zoom as well to make the program more interesting. Let's talk a little bit about service within the context of COVID. And I'm not talking now about sending money off to some project internationally. I'm talking about service project in your community where your members have a chance at a distance to wave at each other or have some contact, because unless that's the part that's missing right now, that personal contact. So some of you are doing that very well. Again, I mean, if you don't want to use the little reaction button, you can just wave your hand. I'll try and catch you. But I want to hear from a few of you on what you're doing in the way of COVID-friendly service projects. And maybe some people that haven't spoken yet, it'd be great to hear from you. And Sherry, I know you guys are doing good things. Your hand's up, so go ahead. Put your mic on.
We're quite a small club. We're getting close to 20, but I think we're at 19 right now. And we get pretty much, I would say, we probably get 15 to 18 at our meetings. And we usually have a speaker and so on. But we've taken on 5 routes for the Meals on Wheels. And we do it every week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it's because the Meals on Wheels has much bigger demand since COVID started. So they need it, and we may continue to do that. So that's huge. We've also been reaching out or letting the corporate sector know about the work we do with the Starfish program, which we do through the school district. And we've had quite a few donations come in on that, which has been really great. The other thing that we're working on right now, one of our members, our president-elect, is chairing the SASE program, which I think you all know what SASE is, don't you?
No, maybe you should tell them.
Sorry. It's service above self, student. What's the Y mean? I can't remember what the Y is, but it's a program that we've been adapted from one. I think it was, I don't know when it was started, but we were aware of it in So Surrey, and it's a way of recognizing young people, grade 11, most of them are grade 11 or 12, and giving them an opportunity to showcase what they've been doing in the community and scholastically and so on. And there's a judging that goes along with it, and then there's 7 or 8 categories, and then we have winners, and the winners are they provide us with a nonprofit, a charity that they want to support, and that their award, it goes to that charity, and they're part of it as well. So anyway, we've now on Facebook right now and other social media are advertising right now for people to apply to be part of the SASE program, and we've been playing a major role in that. While it does involve the other 3 clubs in Langley, we do take a leadership role in that in our club, and have for some time. And we did it virtually this last spring, so we'll do it again this year, and hopefully be able to keep it going in person when the time comes. And of course, we just finished the big lottery that we raised $150,000 on with the other 3 clubs as well. So those were big projects for us, and they've been really successful. We've also done a fair amount of work with the Transition Housing Society for Abused Women and Children in Langley, Ishtar. We have a group doing sewing, which have been doing hygiene kits for overseas, and they switched with the pandemic and have made almost 500 masks for the transition house, because there are 22 beds in Langley. They're always full, of course, and a lot of children. So our sewers have really been going full tilt on that. So it's good, and you can tell with the attendance that things are going well. And I've got another potential member coming for a patio visit tomorrow. No, Friday. So I'm working on that.
Sherry gets the potential members and brings them to her patio as she plies them with some sort of liquid. She's not telling us what it is, and she usually confirms their attendance. Rod put in the chat box, Semiamu Rotary White Rock initiated SASE as Service Above Self Surrey Youth.
Yeah, I know.
Great program, and I'm glad you're doing it in Langley as well. We have a guy in the corner with his hand up, Chris Boyd. Where'd you go? You got to take your mic off, bud.
I guess that would help, eh? Thank you. And also thanks, Rod, for the feedback in terms of visually how we look. It's pretty darn tough to get this glare off my head. So I'll put that advice to good use. We haven't done a lot of service projects, but we've been trying to engage in more moving forward. But we have one of our members is a doctor, and she set something up for us where we got to volunteer at the flu clinics. So there's a drive-through or walk-up flu clinics in the Tri-Cities area. So we had quite the team that would go out there almost daily and volunteer at these clinics. And there's a chance that that may turn into a larger vaccination program, of course, for COVID. So we might be able to help out once that begins in March or so. We are also doing a shred-a-thon, but I guess that's kind of a fundraiser though, but we see that as a bit of a service project. And then we're in the process of adopting a street. So just to get us outside and hopefully find a kind of a street that needs a lot of attention. So we can get out every couple of days and clean that up. So we may try to adopt the one close to one of the shelters in Coquitlam. Yeah, so just a few ideas, but looking forward to hearing more today.
Thanks, Chris. Chris, president nominee of the Rotary Club of Coquitlam, and there is a definite family connection. Sharon, go ahead.
Okay, we were fortunate that one of our fundraising projects is selling Christmas trees. So we were able to do that outside with 3 or 4 Rotarians during December. And it was a way for us to connect with our friends that we don't see as often as we'd like. And we were still able to do our project. And that was that was quite amazing because we all felt like we could stay connected even with it wasn't the full group, but it was some of the group. We have done a lot of work with our local elementary school this last year. It started in the fall with weeding their garden beds, and they have a forest and a trail that's next to the school that is owned by them. So some of our members cleared the trail. My husband ended up making signs for 50 some different trails that they can now find and the whole community can walk on. And it was a great outside project because it involved your hands-on and you could just go walk the trail if you weren't able to help in the project. We are now in the process of several people are designing a mural that will go on the outside classroom walls, and they're designing it so that the elementary school children can actually paint it in the spring. It'll be kind of a paint by numbers project or a paint by color project for young children. And so we've really connected this year more with our elementary school than in the past because so much has been cut back for them. And we're really trying to do our best to support the young people in our community and do whatever we can to make life better for them. And they are going to school, which is great.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sharon, very much. Roger.
Greetings all. Just a couple of ideas. One of them, our club is a fairly small club, but we managed to partner with the Salvation Army on multiple projects, and we found that very effective. One example was Christmas dinner for the homeless and for those in need and handing it out as they came through. Another was just recently a seniors handout where we went around to 200 or 300 seniors and delivered Valentine's packages to them. So we found in our community that partnering probably really helps the community, as well as other clubs. We have a starfish program as well. My other role in the club, other than membership, is also the program chair. And I'm pleased to hear that some of you have mentioned that the key to some good meetings is actually having, what would I call it, an inspiring speaker. This inspiring speaker, we've managed to do that, but as the program chair, I'm running out of ideas. So I'm going to throw this out to the whole district. I know other districts have had a speakers bureau, and we don't have one. And I would hope that maybe Dennis or others or Rod could start thinking about creating a speakers bureau where some of these speakers could then volunteer their time to different clubs. Certainly I've beaten my speakers up and some of them said that they'd be willing to do it. So please, over to you, Dennis or Rod.
Thanks, Roger. Rod, you want to respond to that?
I can do that, Dennis. I think that, Roger, probably what we should do is have a conversation with Pat Bond and perhaps our district webmaster, but we'll work on that so that we can reinstitute a speakers bureau. I think that's a great idea, and informally, a lot of folks do that as it is now. So for instance, if you get a great, I don't know, a Peace Scholar, somebody like that that's going out and you've seen a presentation, you share that around. Those are the sorts of things that work really well.
Okay, thanks for that. Eric at Mount Baker, I want to hear from you in a bit because your club has always done tremendous service in the community. I'm sure you're creative, you've come up with some stuff, but I'll give you a moment or two to think about that. I don't want to put you on the spot. President Kelly Mead from Abbotsford Matsqui, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for being late. I was at another meeting. I'm going to turn this over to Eckerd. He is directly responsible with some of the projects we've been doing. So I'll let Eckerd speak to the project that we've done and the one that we've got upcoming. Eckerd? Can't hear you.
Have you already told us?
Nothing like putting a guy on the spot, eh? It's so Kelly's late. I already spoke to our Zoom meetings, Kelly. So
okay.
You can back off of that.
Okay.
Kelly's a tax accountant. It's tax season. He calls it the harvest. So he's burning the candle at about 4 ends. So enough said. Anyway, in terms of the service opportunities, we've got a couple on the go. And again, we're looking to partner outside of the club with nonprofits primarily. And one of the organizations that we had a bit of an affiliation with for the last couple of years is the Ravine Park Fish Hatchery here in Abbotsford. And so they've been looking for some help around their area And we've done that in terms of brush clearing, weed whacking, power washing of the buildings, cleaning of gutters and downspouts and so forth, particularly around the pond and the main building. We also this year organized a work party to build a shelter for their emergency generator, where we got some donations and so forth. Materials came to about $1,000, and then the rest was labor. So it was a work team of about, I think about 6 of us that did that. And this was back in September, so things were a little bit more relaxed back then, but we managed to get that done. The other main one that we're looking at right now, and we're just starting to explore this, there's a wildlife rescue center here in Abbotsford called Elizabeth's, and they're a not-for-profit that cares for injured and endangered wildlife. And so we actually had the Elizabeth, the head of that organization, as a guest speaker last week, and she's looking for help. There's so much to do there, and not a lot of funding available, a lot of volunteer efforts. So we're thinking of doing something similar with them on a go-forward basis to what we did with the fish hatchery. Other than that, we did some things around Christmas with a Toys for Tots drive, where we raised funds and donations for toys for kids. And there was a Christmas tree decorating thing at a local mall that we participated in, which gave some monies to charity and that sort of thing. So all kinds of things that we can do that are generally COVID safe and outside, and give members an opportunity to participate in the community.
Thanks, Zachary, very much. Debbie, why don't you go ahead and then we'll get back to Rod.
I wanted to add a comment about the regular Zoom meetings that we have on Wednesdays. Our president, Christina Trader, has done a dynamite job. And one of the things that I would agree with everyone on is that special speakers is a big draw. We advertise it, we put it on Facebook, we do all kinds of things. We do have members who won't participate because it's not in person, but that day will come, and like somebody else who mentioned, they still are in connection with those folks. But as far as actual club service, we've done a blood drive a couple times with the American Red Cross, and we've done volunteering for the food bank during the holidays. The other thing that our club is working on right now is our annual auction, which has been postponed since November. It's going to be an online event. We're excited, and everybody's focused on that right now.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Rod.
So Dennis, we have some opportunities with the local food bank, and the challenges there are that COVID protocols mean that we can't go and do regular service of how they put together the backpacks for the Starfish Backpack Program. However, they needed some additional help that was separate from the actual packing of the backpacks. And so we were able to send about 10 volunteers that went out and helped with that. And as we move forward, we have been in touch with Fraser Health about volunteering at whatever clinics may be set up for COVID-19 vaccinations. Obviously, we would be doing things like traffic control and guiding people into where they might be. But we have made contact with Fraser Health, and obviously everybody has their own health region or their own county health in the US, but there's probably opportunities for volunteers to work to assist in moving people through logistically.
Yeah, when we did the flu clinics, we had traffic control, we had people checking off in registration, assisting the medical people any way we could, that sort of thing. Eric, did I put you on the spot? Let's hear from you.
Okay. Yeah, we've definitely been, I guess we haven't done quite as much as we normally would, of course, due to the circumstances out there. We do have our annual auction, which is our one fundraiser for the year, and so the proceeds this year for that went to a food bank and a transitional home in Linden for victims, women and children victims of domestic violence and such. So we donated to that and put in some time there at the food bank. We also, in December, we did a Salvation Army bell ringing where we raised $12,000 in 8 hours of bell ringing, which was really, really nice, really good. And we allocate about $15,000 to $20,000 a year just towards community projects and you know, we haven't been as hands-on with those, but we, you know, we continue to donate to those, you know, as those requests come in, and we've done that for several years now. So yeah, so we're doing our best. You know, our attendance numbers have been way down with the Zoom meetings. I don't know if we're just technologically challenged in our club or what. We've only, you know, we have 60 members and we've only had probably an average of about 8 to 10 per week. So it's been a little bit of a challenge getting people to engage, but we're working on it. So yeah.
Just a clarification for Debbie's sake, your auction, did you do it online?
We did this, yeah. It was the first time, of course, we've ever done that, and it didn't quite produce, you know, what it normally did, but it was, you know, it was good. It was a good learning experience, and it, yeah, it was a success. Yes.
How much does your auction normally bring in a normal year when there's no COVID?
Anywhere between 2 to 250,000. And this year it was about 110.
You hear that? 200 to 250,000, and this year only 110.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about, we have time for service projects during COVID, a couple more. I'm going to come to Sharon, but if there's somebody else that wants to share one who hasn't spoken yet, I'd like to hear from you. Anybody else have one, or we'll go back? Okay, so you go ahead, Sharon.
I just wanted to mention something about Zoom because we have a couple of older members that aren't always able to come to meetings, and we're going to keep doing Zoom even when we get back to real meetings so that they can be part of our meetings. And living where we do on Whidbey Island, we often have members in the car, on the ferry. I mean, some of our members travel. And I think in some ways, as much as we're all rather tired of it, it does keep us connected. So we're going to keep Zooming even after it's all over.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be a hybrid. I think for a lot of clubs, they're going to do a bit of both in the future. All right, we're going to move on, but before we do, Benjamin, Mission, Midday, let's hear from you.
Hi, Dennis. Yeah, it seems there's some overlap with the projects, and that's great. We're involved in several things. Our club gets fairly involved with ongoing initiatives in the community. We have Hope Central, so once a month we go down and we help give out food to the homeless in the community. There are several members that help every week, sometimes a couple days a week, with the St. Joseph's Food Bank. And yeah, the protocols have changed, but they still need people to unload stock and stock up the shelves and help fill the hampers that they're giving out. So I think we're one of their biggest supporters. We've just recently, with the Morning Club in Mission, taken on a section of Mission as an Adopt-A-Block project. There's a seniors building that has just been built in Mission, and we have sponsored, I don't know if it's a multi-purpose room or a meeting room, but we've basically outfitted with help from a district grant. So we will be getting together and bringing in a whole bunch of stuff and have the fun task of assembling a whole bunch of office chairs and office furniture and such. We're also doing a shred-a-thon after tax season, after the harvest. And we're also expecting to make ourselves available to help with vaccinations once we're called upon in the community here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you all for that. One of the things we would like to ask of you to think about is to let us know on the district level, especially in the membership committee, what the district can be doing to help you in your clubs. If you have any ideas on what we can do to gather information for you or whatever, we're really willing to hear from you about that. And I've asked past Governor Sean to talk a little bit about an initiative he's thinking about, run it by you. And if you have any questions for him, go ahead, but we'll take a few moments to do that.
Thank you, Dennis. So one of the things that I was discussing with Dennis was the help we give. We do these membership talks where we're getting a lot of you that have great ideas to share. But we have a number of clubs that are struggling, that their meetings are not attracting people, or they're having struggles getting service projects going. And so what I was saying to Dennis is we really need some kind of membership triage. So I'd like to get a group of us who are doing well in our clubs, who thinks we have things to share, and reach out to clubs that are struggling or that want help to improve, even if they're doing well. And that a small group of us sit down with them and concentrate on them. So rather than call everybody into a room and have discussions about what can work, sitting down and meeting on a regular basis, ongoing, to see what we can do to help them and come up with ideas that they can improve their meetings, improve their membership connection and their connections to the communities. So that's what I'm thinking.
Great. Appreciate you doing that. So if you have any thoughts along those lines in this group, we don't need to do the triage with you. If anything, we would like to borrow some of you to help us do the triage with other clubs, the clubs that aren't here that are really struggling. And so think about that, because you're most welcome to volunteer your input there. And Rod, we have some training coming up. Oh, I see you up there. Sherry, go ahead quickly.
I just wanted to say, I think that's a great idea, Sean. And I think that we could set up, or you could set up some kind of a mentorship buddy system, like matching clubs of similar size and demographic together, some that are struggling and some that are not so much. And, you know, that might be a really, really helpful and kind of fun for everybody. And, you know, the mentors could go back and forth to meetings and, you know, offer suggestions and so on. I think it
Right,
might be a good idea.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, great. And Rod, the training's coming up. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Dennis. In the month of April, we will be having the club training fiesta for the district. Obviously, we're not able to gather on the 17th to have an in-person meeting, but we're going to take that online. Roger Powley, who is on this particular call and is waving now, has agreed to monitor and coordinate and assign Zoom managers, if you will. And I don't know what you want to call them, Roger. I'll get you to speak in just a moment. But he's going to coordinate that throughout the district so that as we present the training online, each presenter will have somebody to help manage the Zoom. Many of you have clubs that are putting programs together on Zoom each week. They're running PowerPoints. They're doing all of the sorts of things that we will need to run that training. And we'd love to hear from you if you have a volunteer that could help. And Roger, maybe you could just give us a quick outline of the skills that are required so that we know what we're looking for. And then I'll ask if you wouldn't mind just typing your email into the chat box. Please respond. We're going to need a number of people to do this, and many hands make light work. So Roger, just a quick outline on the skill set.
Yeah, there are going to be about 20 or more presentations over the month of April. Each will run about an hour, hour and a half, maybe a bit longer, depending on the presenter. So the presenter himself or herself will provide the content that's needed and ideally provide the PowerPoint or other visuals. But what I'm looking for is a technical person, much like Dennis or Rod, that can operate the Zoom program. In other words, knowing how to create rooms if necessary, if that's what the presenter, meeting with the presenter before the meeting, just to talk about how are they going to work together, who's going to introduce whom, how are you going to ask questions, are there a need for polls, you're going to have a poll, or are you going to use breakout rooms? All of those things this technical person would actually do on behalf of the presenter, assuming that the presenter is not technically skilled in the Zoom application. I'm looking for anywhere from 10 to 15 people so that each of you would get each of the technical people would get one or two presenters to work with. And probably a time commitment is the actual presentation and maybe an hour before to actually meet with the presenter and talk to them. It also the person may hopefully have a bit of presentation skills, i.e. how to use PowerPoint and whatnot. And if the presenter needs help to build a proper PowerPoint package for them, assuming that that's what they're going to use. So that's the type of person I'm looking for. And as Rod said, I'll put my email in the chat room. And if you have people in your club that are interested and willing to help, please email me with their contact information. So thank you.
So Roger, if somebody has a bit of interest, you would certainly coach them in some of the details you're talking about, show them how to do, because some people may have a bit of skill and want to expand their skill base. And this might be a really good way to do that.
Possibly, if I get enough people that need that extra mentoring, then certainly I'd be willing to do that and set up an hour session just to talk them through Zoom and whatnot, or even those that already feel comfortable in Zoom, maybe they want a bit of a refresher.
Really
So
right.
I'll do something like that, assuming that the individuals need that type of support as well. I
Mhm.
certainly, one of the things I probably won't be on is on the actual presentations themselves in each one, because that would mean 20 days of, of work for me.
No.
So,
A little advanced coaching should be more than enough there.
yes.
When you go to the chat box down below on your screen, you may already know this, but you click on it and you'll see there's those three little dots there beside the file box there. If you click that, it gives you the opportunity to save the chat box. So if you, once Roger gets his email address in there, if you want to save the chat box for future reference, that's just simplify making note of that. We have a few more minutes. And so some of you haven't been too involved. You've been listening away. Does anybody have any questions or comments they want to add before we wrap it up? Feel free, just put up your hand. Rianne, go ahead there.
I just had an idea. It's not something that that we've done, or I wonder if some other people have done it. And that's maybe having a joint meeting with, say, a Canadian club with an American club that meets at the same time, or even going out and finding a club in Africa, wherever the times would fit, and actually meeting together. And I thought that would be a bit challenging, but it could be quite an interesting thing to do.
All right, good thought. I think somebody's done it. I think one of our clubs has, maybe just with some people in another club in Nigeria, I think, but I'm not sure. Great idea. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, our club has got a planned interclub with a Langley club, but we're also looking into, in Abbotsford, we have a sister city in Japan, and we're looking into contacting the club in Japan so that we can have an intercontinent club. So I guess the key thing is you have to use a little imagination and think out of the box now that we're on Zoom. And, you know, that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to in our club, and I'm sure Eckert talked about this, but it's really up to the executive and that to come up with some ideas and just constantly think about different ways to engage people. And we only have one person in our club that really dislikes the Zoom. We've fortunately been able to have a lot of different things happening that it keep people excited and keep them coming back. And I'm sure that Eckert mentioned them, but presentations, getting all your members involved. I make sure we delegate to a lot of different members in every meeting, something different to do within the meeting so that they feel not only obligated to come, but they feel involved. And of course, new members is the key to everything. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you mention that. Some presidents, bless their hearts, they get up in the meeting and even on Zoom and they just do it all. They do it all. And whereas bringing people in on the screen is so much better. It gets people involved. Gary O'Reilly, you're a membership guru there at Lake Stevens. Do you have any thoughts you want to share with anybody before we wind down here?
Well, one of the things that I have taken on with our membership chair, I'm secretary of the club, is when we get a new prospective member, in the past, what we used to do was put them on a Friends of the Club. I've dispensed with that, and what I have done instead, since I'm a retiree and have a little bit more time than Ron, is each week I send them the Zoom link, and then I follow that up and send them the bulletin. So I'm communicating with them twice a week. We have 3 members that I'm still or 3 potentials I'm still working on. One who Dennis is familiar with, Brian Reese, came through RI, is going to join. I'm waiting for his application. The other 2 have expressed. We've got about 6 new members in the last few months, and I think it has a lot to do with our communications with them.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Rod, you're probably Rod Bring, Bellingham Bay. You haven't said much. Anything you want to throw in?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed listening to it. New members, induction. How has that gone? We're going to bring on a new member. Thank you, Gary, for your feedback. I reach out personally and call. It's kind of a different touch rather than email. and voice. I mean, it seems to help a little bit, but we're going to bring in a new member here next week or the week after. We're meeting every other week now. And it's a bit of a challenge, you know, with the packet, the certificates, the printing. I'm in Arizona right now. So I really like Zoom because I can stay in Arizona for 4 months and not miss any meetings. It's actually a benefit for our club. Attendance has been good. Mike couldn't make it, but I mean, we're doing basically mirroring what you're doing too. Our service organizations, we're doing COVID volunteering. We work locally with the high school. They have a Rotaract club there of students in high school that are very interested. 24 or more members in that club. So it's pretty big and popular with them. And so I guess we're schooling kids to be future members of Rotary. Other service organizations, we do have our charitable giving. We have docks for the kids right now. There's a Lake Padden or Lake Whatcom, excuse me, that tore out all the docks due to liability issues. We've done some major fundraising, and we're going to put those docks back in so kids can swim. Lately, they've been just jumping off of bridges next to traffic, which is a danger we saw and identified and said, you know, we got to do something about it. But the club, I mean, we're probably at 50% attendance, I would say. We're 80 or so members and, you know, chugging along, which seems to be growing now. People are getting more comfortable, but the same issues. There are those that just aren't going to participate and wait until we get back into it in person. And hopefully when we all get our shots, we can do that soon.
Excellent. Jim down below, Terry and Jen, you've got your cameras off, so I'm assuming maybe you don't have much to say. We can't see you, but if you want to jump in real quickly, we're going to stop in a moment. Maybe you're not even there. Jen?
I'll jump in quickly, actually, just
Put your
so you
camera
know,
on.
our Sunrise project that we're working on right now, which is through the money received through a community grant, and we are renovating a suite in a complex for the Friends of Refugees. So it's a 3-level, which allows us to have multiple people being able to work at the same time.
Thank you. Okay, Rod, you get the final word. We'll wrap it up.
Thanks very much, Dennis. I just wanted to comment that the idea of doing interclub meetings on Zoom is a wonderful one. Way back in the last millennium, when I was a club president, the district governor of the day actually paired our clubs, Canadian and US clubs, in the district. And a number of us did in-person interclubs. And so, for instance, Abbotsford of Bellingham Bay both meet on Tuesdays at noon, and we did an interclub where about 20 of us drove south and about 20 of their club drove north, and we swapped presidents for the day, and I ran their meeting and their president ran ours. And it was great fun. So there's no reason you can't do that on Zoom right here in our own district.
Great.
Rod, do we have to quarantine ourselves after we do an interclub?
No, as long as you've got virus protection on your computer, Kelly, it's fine.
Virus protection for sure. Well, listen, thank you all for joining us. It's great. And you had your sharing was excellent. This is recorded, so we'll let other membership chairs know they can have a look. And we'll probably do another one of these with the folks who weren't able to be here. We did a couple of calls before, and many of you have come before, and I appreciate your ongoing involvement. So all the best, take care, and stay healthy.
And Sean, you're going to hand over hosting duties to me.